Hey guys, it's your boy Snowboy, back at it with the Tinpot tier list videos. It's been a long time since I've made one of these. I think this is number 7. 6 or 7. Pretty sure it's 7. But yeah, we're doing another one of these. And today's special is Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1 characters. So this is a game I have played. It's also a game where I have watched people play it through, so I am aware of a lot of the different outcomes. For those who don't know, or maybe you've only seen The Walking Dead, the TV series, there's also a game based on The Walking Dead and zombie apocalypses and that kind of thing. Telltale games are famously about the decisions you make rather than necessarily being very good mechanically. It's just about what decisions would you make as a main character, and who gets to live and who gets to die based on those decisions, that kind of thing. But I'm guessing you probably clicked on this video because you do know what Telltale's Walking Dead is, and will probably know who most of these people are. Now, disclaimer alert, for those of you who have not played the game, or have not watched the playthrough of the game and intend to do one or both of those things, I would not recommend watching this video. Feel free to come back to it after, but definitely do not watch this video if you do not want to be spoiled, because there will be spoilers. Because it's very difficult to rank characters without spoiling some of the scenes that they're in. So, without any further ado, let's go into the tier list. So it originally said S to D here, but I've changed the tiers into things that are a bit more topic appropriate. So, S tier over here at the top is made the apocalypse worth living. So speaks for itself. Instead of A tier, I've put please join my crew. So someone who would be good enough to join my crew. Not again really. I'm basing these rankings on how good the characters are, not necessarily how likable they are, if that makes sense. Like a completely unlikable character could still be here, but if they're a good character, they get up there. Not necessarily if they're likable. I'll explain more later. So my middle tier here is wouldn't mind surviving with. It's like, yeah, you're in the team, but you're just one of the numbers. I don't like or dislike you particularly. This tier here, second from last, at least you existed. Guessing this is where a lot of the unmemorable characters are gonna go. And the bottom tier here is push in front of Walker. So, if a Walker comes, then this person is with me, and it's either me or them. I'm pushing them in front of it. So, yeah, let's get into the characters. It looks like they've been organized in alphabetical order. I'm going to do my best to make these only based on how they were in Season 1. Another spoiler alert, a lot of these characters do not make it to Season 2. But, more on that later. So we'll start from the top with, I believe that is Andy St. John. So this is from the part of the series where the group finds the St. John's Dairy, which seems to be paradise on Earth. The St. Johns are a lovely, kind family who are very nice to you, and then later on you find out they are actually cannibals, and they are eating human meat. And they later trap you as in a freezer where you are late to become human meat. Of course, they fed some to you first, which was very nice of them. So, as characters, I don't know. They weren't the most interesting people. You could kind of tell from the beginning that they were kind of shady in the way they acted, the way they stopped you from going into certain areas. The kind of answers they gave that reflected from what was the truth. So you could kind of tell that something bad was going on. And whenever you're playing an apocalypse game or watching an apocalypse series and something seems too good to be true, you already know it is. You could already tell these guys there was some sinister twist behind their luxury farm with all the crops and all the bread and all the electric fences that will protect you forever. They weren't that interesting, but they weren't terrible characters. So I'm gonna put them in wouldn't mind surviving with. They're like mid tier. We'll go with we'll put Andy in there. Next character is Ben. Good old Ben. So you meet him before the St. John's Dairy, but when your crew is at the motel near the start. So Ben is a college student, I believe, and he's with a couple of other guys, one other student and one of his teachers, who don't last very long, so Ben ends up joining your crew. And Ben is pretty much the kid slash grown up that doesn't really do very well with responsibility, is very scared, abandons Clementine on several occasions, doesn't do a very good job with anything. He tries his best, and then later on it's revealed that Ben is actually the one that sold out the crew to a bunch of bandits and started stealing supplies from you and giving it away to the bandits to maintain peace, but without telling anyone else. So Ben, definitely someone I wouldn't want in my crew. Of course, for anyone who's watched it, they would know that Ben and Kenny got into a lot of arguments, and then that's later exasperated by the fact that Ben giving them away to the bandits is what ended up with Kenny's son Doug getting bitten and then dying eventually. Yeah. The thing about Ben's character is, I understand that the character starts as a scared, irresponsible kid that struggles to do anything right, and it feels like you're trying to build him up to a point where he does something heroic or he does something really useful. But in the end, he actually really doesn't do that much. I mean, he dies in the end when you're jumping across from one building to another, and he just falls off and then gets impaled on a piece of metal. And it's not really a heroic death at all. In fact, you even lose Kenny from your crew because Kenny ends up being guilty and going to defend him. Of course, there is another way Ben can die, which is if you heartlessly leave him at Crawford while he's hanging on for dear life. I mean, I wouldn't particularly want Ben in my crew, but I don't think I would have left him hanging like that. Just leave him to the zombies for no good reason. Like, you're not saving anyone else, you're not saving any time. So I guess there is that other way of Ben. Of course, I think there is the possibility of Ben not coming with you when you search for Clementine at the end. I'm not sure about that. But basically Ben dies, and there's all this build-up of him being bad, and you sticking with him, and not getting rid of him, and him coming good at the end, but he just never does. And for that reason, Ben goes at the top of this tier, I think. Just on the edge of please join my crew, because he's still an interesting character. Just they could have made him do something good before they kill him off. We'll put him there for now. Who's next? We've got another St. John here. We've got the mother of the family, Brenda, who tries to be a very charming, nice, southern lady. Oh, so kind. Now I've got food for all of y'all. And she ends up being, of course, the cook of all the human meat. And you get the scene at the end where you're trying to save Katya from Brenda, where Brenda has her at gunpoint, and you have to remind her about her husband that passed away, and this isn't what he would have wanted. And then hilariously, you force her to back up the stairs, where Mark, who had his legs cut off, got his revenge on Brenda and bit her, and eventually she turned into one of the undead. But I wouldn't rate her any higher than any of the other St. Johns. They're all about the same. They're just a family that promised a lot, ended up being cannibals. There wasn't much else to them, really. Next up is Bree, I believe her name was. Bree was the was the woman from the cancer survivor group you meet towards the end when you get to Savannah, I think. Well, I know. She doesn't last very long. You find her and her cancer survivor group, and then you're held at gunpoint by Vernon, and she's the one that's kind of urging Vernon to kill you because I could give her their location away, which I'm not too upset at. Although you kind of understand it when you later hear about the story of Crawford, and you hear that they're basically killing everyone that isn't part of their group. So you can kind of understand her wanting to not take that risk. And then later on she helps you with the heist at Crawford and getting all that stuff back. She helps Kenny with the petrol, I believe, after giving everyone the lowdown of what is where. You don't really get to help her much, and while you're escaping from Crawford she ends up dying, so not a very memorable character. I'll put her in here for now, at least who existed. There just wasn't that much time to get to know her. She survived cancer, I guess, which is cool, but there's not much else to her character, unfortunately. Next one is Carly. So this is an interesting one because depending on how you play the game, Carly can either last pretty long or not very long at all. I imagine the majority of players, when given the chance of saving either Carly or Doug, pretty much all of them, I think, would go for Carly, pretty much because she's the pretty girl and they just want her to be alive more. I think also because Carly showed herself to be proficient with a gun, which Doug really wasn't. So Carly, pretty girl, and also probably seen as more useful. Although I don't think it makes a huge difference going forward if you pick one or the other. They both contribute in their own way, even if it's slightly different. Carly is of course a news reporter who knows about Lee's history and that he was a murderer, but decides to keep it quiet for the benefit of Lee and benefit of the group, which you have to respect, because she knows that telling everyone that Lee's a murderer will probably not lead to good things within the group. And then later, if you do keep her alive, Carly actually is the one that encourages Lee to be open to everyone and admit to them about his past. So Carly, very cool character. But is she very top tier? Because we already know some of the people that are going into this top tier. Oh, it's tough. But I'm going to put Carly at the top of Please Join My Crew. Very, very good character. Useful character. Helps Lee progress a lot as well. And she helps you in the Escape St. John's area as well. So she's useful there. Yeah, I think we'll leave her and Please Join My Crew for now. I think that's fair. Next one, I believe this dude's name was Chet. And he basically helps you at the very start of the game escape Clementine's neighborhood at the very start of the game. I think it was Sean was the name of the guy, and you literally drive to Sean's place with him and then you never see him again, so there really wasn't much to chat. I mean, thanks for the help, dude, but yeah, he wasn't much of a memorable character, so he's getting pushed in front of a walker. Sorry, dude. Nothing personal. Next up is Krista, who you meet quite a bit later in the series. Krista you meet when the train to Savannah is stopped and you have to deal with the big tanker vehicle that is blocking your train's path, and you meet Omid and Krista. And Krista, she's very hard on you at the start. They're not very open about what happened to her and Omid at the start, or what happened before you met them, but presumably they were with a larger group before, and they struggle, so Krista's a bit hard on people, and she and Omid are of course together. So she doesn't want anyone else to sort of disturb what they have going on. They've been surviving together. Things have been going right for the two of them. So she's very skeptical about the group at first, but eventually warms to the group and agrees to join. And she keeps it to herself, but I think eventually the group figure out that she is indeed pregnant with a child. I don't think they make that particularly obvious in season 1. I think they do mention it. I think there is a hint to it when she does start drinking in the attic in that scene. Everyone's looking at her in a shocked way. But yeah, Krista starts off really as a like tough as nails character, very blunt, very brutal, very critical of Lee as well. Whereas when she joins the group, everyone is sort of on Lee's side, but then Krista's the sort of one that debates what Lee says and questions his decisions, which I think is a good thing to do for a character. And then later on, of course, when Lee meets his untimely end, Krista and Omid agree to take on the care of Clementine. Not just agree, they volunteer for it. And if you tell them that you don't want them to take care of Clementine, or you want Kenny to do it, or you want them to give him to someone else, they're quite upset about it because they really care about Clementine, and them being a couple, it makes sense for them to take care of the kid. Well, I said a lot about Krista, so I can't really put her in one of the lower tiers. I think she's definitely Please Join My Crew. She's up there for sure. Clementine. Well, it goes without saying that Clementine goes up here. But yeah, amazing character. Of course, when you meet her, she's just a kid. Her parents are far away, presumably on a business trip. I wasn't actually sure about that part, but they were on a holiday somewhere when the apocalypse started, and poor Clementine is left on her own with her babysitter, and her babysitter at some point turned. Clementine was just trapped in a treehouse until Lee helped her out. To be fair, Clementine kind of saved Lee even in that scene as well by giving him the hammer. But yeah, the journey that Clementine and Lee go on together as Clementine eventually learns about what happened to her family. She goes through all of this trouble with Lee. Crew members join, leave, die, betray each other, and the independence Clementine starts to get through the series as she starts to be able to make her own decisions and even be very useful to the crew herself by killing some of the zombies, by warning people, climbing into vents and spaces that no one else can. So she's probably one of the most useful people in the crew, and minor spoiler for anyone who doesn't want to know beyond season 1, she definitely gets a lot more independent in the future, which is great to see. But yeah, you can't not love Clementine just for the voice acting alone. The cute voice, and when she bursts into tears, the scene she has with Lee where it's like a father-daughter talk, very memorable scenes, and yeah, you can't not love Clementine, can you? Yeah, easily top tier. And made the Apocalypse worth living isn't just because she's a great character, because having someone like her around would definitely make you want to survive, for sure. Next one is the other St. John, Danny. This guy was definitely the creepier of the two. You definitely got the sense that he enjoyed just killing things and a little bit sadistic in nature. Like when you meet was it Jolene at that campsite, and he's very eager to shoot her, and if you don't shoot her, he does. Saying it was either her or him, that he definitely seems to enjoy killing things a little too much, which kind of tips you off as to what kind of people they are. But yeah, Danny just goes with all the other St. John's in the middle. Next up is Doug. So yeah, you get the choice of saving Carly or Doug. Most people pick Carly. So Doug, not the best with a gun, not the best at combat, but he does have some useful knowledge. Like when you're getting the keys to the pharmacy, Doug's tech knowledge certainly comes in handy, where he's able to reprogram a remote to turn on the TVs in the store to drag the zombies away from the area with the keys. That was clever. And the alarm system that Doug set up definitely helped them a few times when bandits arrived and when the St. John's came as well. And the laser pointer, I think, when you were fighting against the St. John's, was useful as well. So Doug certainly has his uses, even if people may not have liked him as much as Carly. If you keep him alive. And also whether it's Carly or Doug, both of them stuck up for Ben before Lily shot them at me on the road. So I'm going to put Doug up. Do I put him up here? Is he a better character than Ben? I'm going to put him here. He's between Ben and Carly, realistically, because I think Carly's a better character, because I think emotionally she's able to get more out of Lee than Doug did. Doug was pretty much just good at building stuff, or good at making stuff, good at tech. He's a smart guy, but emotionally didn't really progress Lee's story very much compared to Carly. And he was just a bit more useful than Ben, so he gets put above Ben a little bit. Next up is Duck, which is Kenny and Katya's son. He's meant to be the annoying kid character that just has really high energy and just wants to play all the time and can get on your nerves a bit. To me, I didn't find that very irritating. Like some of the playthroughs I've seen of other people playing The Walking Dead, people really don't like Duck and just his energy, and I don't know, it just feels like those people have never met a kid before. Like, kids are high energy and they're supposed to bring the energy levels of everyone up. And in an apocalypse particularly, you'd want someone with you that sort of keeps people's spirits up, and I wasn't that irritated by Duck. He has irritating moments for sure, but I didn't find it that bad. He helps you solve the mystery of who was not who, but the missing supplies, where he helps you find the spot where Ben was later found out to be the one giving the bandit supplies. So Duck helps you solve that mystery. If you left Duck hanging for that high five, you're a monster. You also get the choice to save either Duck or Sean at the start in like the very first episode. But I think whichever one you choose, Sean dies and Duck lives. So if you chose Duck to die, again, pretty heartless to not save the kid, in my opinion. But yeah, Duck, high energy, bit annoying at times. Not very smart, but lovable. And unfortunately, when the motel gets raided, Duck does get bitten in the chaos and gets sick, and eventually the crew has to stop the train, and either you or Kenny has to put him out of his misery, which is very sad. It was a very sad moment. I think even people who didn't like Duck would admit that his death was a very sad moment. I think just for that moment alone, Duck probably goes up here. And also, the other thing about Duck was he was Clementine's only friend as well. So you got to bear that in mind. Like, it wasn't just Kenny's family that felt Doug's death really hard, but Clementine also suffered a lot for it as well, so he was the only person her age. So I'm going to give Duck some credit here. I'm sure a lot of you will have put him in one of these two categories, but he deserves a little bit higher in my opinion. Next up is Glenn. So Glenn is one of the survivors that you meet in Macon at the start inside the Everett pharmacy, and I've actually just started watching the Walking Dead TV series, and I believe the Glenn in that series is meant to be the same as the Glenn in the cartoon series, in the animated series, because when Glenn leaves the crew to go find his friends in Atlanta, and then in the Walking Dead actual series, Glenn meets Rick in Atlanta. I believe that was connected. So Glenn leaves your crew in Macon to go to Rick's crew in Atlanta. Well, he was looking for his other friends, I think, but he ends up meeting Rick and then joining their crew. But I'm not too far into that, so I don't know too much about what happens there. But Glenn was a cool character, a useful character. He knew his way around. He helped out. He helped find supplies for the crew. He helped the crew escape the pharmacy. Then there was a funny scene when you, Carly, and Glenn are helping the girl at the motel, and Glenn's disappointed that the woman was taken, even though that was far from the biggest concern. She'd been bitten, and there were zombies there. He was all right, but it's hard to justify putting him above At Least You Existed, because he wasn't around for long. And although he was likable, he wasn't really a main character. He didn't do too much. Do I put him at the bottom of here? Do I rank him below the St. John's? Maybe I rank the St. John's down a bit. Tough. Just looking at some of the other characters. Yeah, I'm gonna put Glenn here. I want to put him up here because I personally liked him as a person. As a character, he wasn't the most memorable, so I'm gonna put Glenn. At Least You Existed. Next up is Herschel. So he's the guy you meet at the farm at the very start when you and Clementine escape with Sean and Chet. So yeah, Herschel, as far as we know, is alive. We know Herschel takes you into his farm, lets you stay overnight, and in the morning you help the family build up some fences to try and defend, and then Sean ends up dying, his son, and then Herschel ends up kicking everyone out of rage. But before he does do that, he does help you out. He has a conversation with Lee, as of course Lee's not a father, so he's just taking care of a kid for the first time with Clementine, and Herschel offers some advice, not just about parenting, but also about survival and telling the truth to survive. So Herschel did, I think, have an impact on Lee's sort of story with the advice he gave him, which is very important later on in some of the scenarios Lee ends up facing. But I can't really put him above At Least You Existed. But he did progress the story, I think, further than Glenn. I mean, at the start, he doesn't even believe that the apocalypse is that important. I'm sure he does now once his son ends up dying, but yeah, I think he deserves his spot there. Next up is Katya, so Kenny's wife and Duck's mother. So she is a veterinarian. She certainly feels like the nice member of the family, compared to Kenny, who can be very mean. So Katya's sort of the one that balances him out. She's very kind, she's very giving, she's very good with Clementine as well. She helps, she's like the de facto doctor of the group as well, even though she's only a vet. She does her best to take care of people who are sick and wounded, helps out the St. John's at the dairy with their sick cow, helps heal it up, and then, yeah, she helps out with medical stuff, and she's a good mother to Duck, and tries to keep Kenny from being too aggressive with others. And of course there was the heartbreaking scene when Duck was bitten, and then Katya insisted on being the one to put Duck out of his misery, and then very sadly is unable to do it and ends up shooting herself, which was a very sad end to Katya's story, not something she deserved for sure. But yeah, I don't know. See, I don't think she was more important a character to the series as Duck. But she was useful. But, I don't know, I like her, but can I put her above these other characters? I don't think I can. She's definitely above the St. John's. Can I move Ben down? I don't know. I think Ben's character was good enough. Ben can stay there. But yeah, I like Katya's character. It's just she didn't have the main character energy that some of these other characters did. She didn't get involved with Lee or Clementine enough to justify putting her up there, I think. And she didn't do anything particularly badass or heroic to go up either. And Carly did have some badass moments, which is why she's up there, and same for Krista. I'm thinking maybe I put Krista too high, but we'll think about re-ranking people at the end. Let's carry on. Next up we've got Kenny. So Kenny's like that guy who you deal with, in a sense. He's not the most likable guy in the world. Very impulsive, very hot-tempered, but he is a survivor. He can handle himself. He knows how to shoot. He works hard. He finds supplies. He's a problem solver. He's able to, like for example, with the boat, he's able to get the boat working. Of course, the boat ended up getting stolen thanks to our buddy Ben. If you leave Ben behind. I think you have to leave. Can't remember if you have to leave Ben behind. No, you don't. But yeah, Kenny's the kind of guy you'd want to survive with, but you'd not necessarily want to be friends with. Although if you do get him on his side, he's very, very loyal to you. He's very loyal to Clementine. He helps Lee out a lot with parenting. Having a kid of his own definitely helps, and he's very loyal, in particular to his family, Katya and Duck. And eventually, because you're around with him for so long, even if you go against him a lot with decisions, he does stay loyal to you as well. Though, interestingly, if you do decide against him on enough occasions, Kenny decides he doesn't want to go with you to help you find Clementine after Lee gets bitten. So, but Kenny definitely is a complex character. And I think as a character, he's enough to go into the very top tier, just because you never know what you're going to get with Kenny. Of course, him killing Larry as well was a huge moment. Or if you don't kill Larry, Kenny ends up doing it himself, which of course causes a lot of tension between him and Lily. And yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs with Kenny, of course. He loses his family. Katya and Duck, those were big moments. And Kenny, potentially, if you don't do it yourself, has to be the one to shoot Duck, put him out of his misery. And you can see it weighing on him a lot as Kenny gets very short-tempered, very dispirited. But he eventually works through it and still does his bit for the group, even if he's not feeling particularly good. And yeah, eventually he helps you out with Clementine. He has a tough relationship with Ben as well, because he sees Ben as the useless guy of the group. And then later, when it's revealed that Ben was giving away the supplies that eventually led to the bandits overrunning the camp and Duck getting bitten. But Kenny eventually is guilty over how he treats Ben, and then tries to save him when he gets impaled. I won't spoil what happens later, but we don't see what happens to Kenny, and he's presumed dead. Probably already spoiled it a bit just by saying that, but if you've seen Season 1 by now, you've probably seen Season 2, and you know what happens to Kenny, but I'm not going to say it anyway, just in case. But yeah, I think Kenny deserves a top tier, just because he's the guy that's with you from the start, and is with you till the end, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens with him. Next up is Larry, the big man himself. Larry. Absolutely hates your guts. Is the most hot-tempered son of a gun you'll ever meet. Not only is he hot-tempered, but he will attack you, as seen by what he did to Lee. At the very start when you meet him, when you and the crew go into the pharmacy, Larry assumes Duck is bitten and immediately demands that Duck be killed, which is not really a way to endear yourself to the family. And he absolutely insists on it, even though Duck hadn't been bitten. At that point, he didn't even want to wait for that to be checked. He just wanted Duck to die in an instant. Despite being a father himself, very, very unempathetic. And later on, Larry reveals that he knows that Lee's a killer, or was a killer before this all started, and then knocks you unconscious as you're escaping the pharmacy. Fortunately, Kenny's there to help you up and escape, but Larry actively tries to leave you for dead. And then you've got to be friends with him again afterwards, which is annoying, because if someone did that to me, I'm telling the group, and we're getting you out of there. I don't care if you're Lily's father. You don't do that to someone, man. That's just messed up. Eventually, is there anything else important about Larry's story? You get to the motel. The one redeeming quality about Larry is he's a decent dad to Lily, I guess. But, anyone can be loyal to their family. And he's strong, so I guess he's good to have on your side in a fight, I suppose. We didn't really see Larry fight off too many walkers. Maybe he did off screen, who knows. We see him getting friendly with Brenda St. John as well, and he was one of the people that was heavily advocating for the St. John family before it was revealed that they were cannibals. So nice one there, Larry. And he ends up going crazy in the freezer. Oh, by the way, all of this mean stuff that he's done, like knocking us out, is done after we've spent so long trying to break into the pharmacy to get the pills he needs to help his heart. So, nice one there, Larry. And then even after that, Larry is locked in the freezer, goes nuts, smashing the doors, demanding to be let out, has a heart attack, and it's not known whether he would have survived or not, and you have to decide whether to kill him to prevent him from turning, or to let Lily try and resuscitate him, and whether either you kill him or you decide not to kill him and then Kenny kills him for you. So he dies in that freezer anyway. It's just whether it's you or Kenny that it ends up doing the killing. Yeah, and I don't think anyone was too sad to see Larry go. I certainly wasn't. But as unlikable a character he is, he at least was important, and he definitely gives you decisions to make. So I am going to put Larry, I think, above Katya as a character. I think he was more important, even if I didn't like him or anyone liked him. He was still a character worth mentioning. He, of course, has an effect on Lily afterwards. His death, obviously, weighs heavily on Lily as well. So we'll put Larry there. Next up is Lee, who he's okay. I'm putting him here, but he's tied with Clementine. Okay, I can't decide who's a better character, Lee or Clementine. But Lee, I mean, he's the character you play as. There's so much depth to his character. You learn about his backstory. Of course, he was on his way to prison before the apocalypse started, and you find out that it was because he murdered someone that was having an affair with his wife. You learn, of course, that he wasn't having good relations with his wife. They never ended up having kids. I think it's revealed that Lee wanted kids, but his wife didn't, I think. And then Lee ends up kind of adopting a kid with Clementine, learning how to be a father, learning how to survive in the apocalypse, meeting all kinds of people, witnessing the betrayal of some people, witnessing the death of others, and yeah, just his journey through fatherhood and protecting Clementine, teaching her how to fend for herself at the very end when he's dying, and then making the decision to not look for Clementine's parents, which results in her running away and going to the stranger that had been talking to her unknowingly through the walkie-talkie. But yeah, Lee just goes through such an epic journey. Of course, a lot of that journey is decided by the decisions you make. So inherently, you have to put him at the top because all of the great gameplay decisions are through Lee. So actually, he's at the top. Next up is Lily, daughter of Larry. So you meet her at the pharmacy. She seems like she is the leader of the group, although when you meet that group, although you and Kenny sort of not take over, but are joint leaders with Lily later on. Lily's, of course, looking out for herself and her father mainly. She's a bit cold-blooded, very ruthless, not very kind, similar to her father, although she is a bit nicer than her dad. And even after the death of Larry, even though she's angry at Kenny or you for making the decision to kill him, she still contributes to the group. She helps ration out the supply, which as it shows when she makes you do it, is not a very easy job. Very good marksman as well. She was very useful. Taught people how to use guns as well, so she had military training. She definitely was very useful. But when it was revealed, well, it wasn't revealed who was stealing supplies. It was revealed afterwards, but she was the one who was at the head of the find out who's stealing the supplies committee, and she is pretty sure it was Ben, and it was Ben. And in the end, when everyone's trying to ask for calm, she ends up shooting either Doug or Carly, which there was absolutely no reason to do. They could have just kept talking about it, discussed what to do. But yeah, Lily just loses her cool, and I think she was trying to shoot Ben, and either Doug or Carly, whichever one you say before, ends up taking the hit. And then you end up deciding whether to either leave Lily behind or take her with you and decide what to do with her later. So you either leave her for dead or you take her with you in the RV. And then when you get out of the RV, Lily steals it and drives off. So either way, Lily leaves your crew. You end up without the RV, even though the RV is useless due to the train being in front of it anyway. So I'm gonna put Lily. I might move some of these mid-tier characters up a bit, you know. I think Lily deserves a spot up here. We'll change things later, but I think Lily should go up here. She has an interesting character. She's one of the more useful ones. Has to deal with the death of her dad. And even before that, she's one of the leaders of the group and has to make a lot of tough decisions as well. So we'll put Lily up here, I think. Alright, 45 minutes in. So next one is Mark. So we don't spend a lot of time with Mark. In fact, we don't even get introduced to him properly. From one episode to the next, Mark just is all of a sudden part of the group. Apparently he was at an Air Force base and he had some supplies, which is why they let him tag along. He's just like a level-headed, average Joe guy who was kind of useful. Has a conversation with Lee where he asks about. It's basically a summary of the first episode where it's like, what do you think of this character? What do you think of that character? And then he tries to get Lee's thoughts on them. And later on, if you say bad things about a certain character, he'll accidentally say what you said about them. Or if you say something good about them, he accidentally says that. Mark ends up unfortunately getting shot with an arrow by one of the raiders outside the St. John Dairy. And then when they supposedly are caring for him in the house, they find out that they're not in fact caring for him, but in fact they've chopped him up and they're serving him for dinner. And then you find him in the bathroom without his legs and arms, and he's slowly bleeding out, and eventually he turns undead, where he gets his revenge on Brenda by turning her. Just for that epic moment alone, I guess he deserves to be above At Least You Existed. Does he? Yeah, just for that moment alone, he'll get bottom of Wouldn't Mind Surviving with. Other than that, he was pretty much just a guy who had some dialogue now and then, didn't really make any decisions or have any beefs for anyone, didn't do anything that was too epic. So yeah, we'll leave him there. Next up is Molly. So you meet Molly in Savannah when you're looking for boats. And she's just like the super cool chick that just is super athletic, super independent, does everything by herself, can fight a million zombies at once, has her pickaxe, had loads of badass cool moves, and she helps you out in Savannah. Eventually, even though she's very blunt, particularly with Kenny, and can be difficult to get along with, but once you get past the sort of badass attitudes, she is helpful to the group. You learn about Molly's history as well, which is that she started at the start of the apocalypse. She lived in the Crawfords settlement, which was famous for getting rid of anyone who couldn't carry their weight, so elderly people, children, disabled people, people with illnesses they got rid of. And I think it was Molly's sister that was pregnant, and they tried to force her to terminate the pregnancy, and that was the start of the downfall of Crawford. She refused to terminate the pregnancy, and then ended up killing a bunch of people, which led to Crawford eventually falling undead. And yeah, that definitely hurt Molly. Presumably her sister didn't survive, or the child didn't survive a birth because she didn't have the medication she needed. And it is revealed that Molly was actually performing some sexual favors to the doctor to get medicine that she needed. and then eventually the Doctor stopped that arrangement, and then yeah, that led to Molly's sister dying, and Molly was very vengeful when meeting with certain people in Crawford or certain zombies. But yeah, she was an interesting character. She was very helpful, saved the crew a lot. And initially she wanted to be on the boat that escaped Savannah, but then she changed her mind, deciding to take it, decided to be a lone wolf, which is respectable. It allowed more room for other people to be on the boat as well. Yeah, I think Molly, she's at least at the top of Please Join My Crew. Extremely useful, badass combat moves, very, very fun to be around. Her dry humor was funny as well, and she had an interesting backstory, and she definitely made it easier to dislike Crawford, if that makes sense, because she was someone that went through pain firsthand. Next up is Omid, husband of Krista. So yeah, he's the joker of the group, who's just constantly making people laugh, terrible puns, and at times very poorly timed jokes in desperate situations. But definitely likable, very likable character. But when you are jumping from the bridge onto the train, and Omid initially falls off the train, somehow manages to catch up with you, even though he's broken his leg. I think he's broken his leg. And the crew needs to go to Crawford for a lot of reasons, and one of which is to get medical supplies to help treat Omid's wounds. And as you're able to get, and with the help of Vernon, you're eventually able to treat Omid to the point where he's better. Yeah, Omid actually survives till the end of season 1. He's very nice. He and Krista agree to help take care of Clementine. If you want them to, of course. Clementine, at the very end, you see meeting up with Omid and Krista, so you know that she ended up being in their care. I just feel like if Krista is up here, then Omid has to be up here as well. I'll put it like that, but I think they're pretty close as well. I'd put them as tied. Yeah, I like Omid a lot. Maybe we'll put Omid and Krista down here. I think Carly and Lily were more important overall. Omid and Krista still deserve to be in this spot, just for taking care of Clementine, probably. Alright, next up we've got this dude. See, I don't even remember his name, so you already know he's going in front of a walker. I think he's the teacher that was with Ben when you meet them outside a motel towards the very start. His leg gets caught in a bear trap. You have to cut it free. You take him back to the crew. Katya tries to save his life, but he just loses way too much blood from the loss of his leg. He dies, turns, almost kills everyone. The only purpose he served was to tell everyone that it doesn't matter how you die, bite or not. If you don't take out the brain, then they end up turning into a zombie. That was pretty much the only purpose he served. There was not much else to his character, really. At least Chet helped you do something, you know? It wasn't a burden to the group, so Chet gets to be above the teacher. I mean, I don't even know if they named the teacher. It was Mr. Something, but I can't remember what his name was. Okay, next up is this dude. The policeman that is escorting Lee at the very start of the game. He had some funny one-liners, but I mean, I wouldn't be doing justice to some of these characters if I put him above any of them. Just for the funny dialogue with Lee, which sort of introduces Lee's character. We're gonna put him at the top of pushing front of Walker. Yeah, he has some funny lines. Of course, because he's stupid enough not to be looking at the road and while talking to Lee, he hits a walker, drives off the road, dies, and then ends up turning, and that's the first zombie you have to kill. Yeah, we'll put him there. I don't think he even gets a name. Next up is Sean, so son of Herschel. So when you escape from Clementine's neighborhood, you get to go to Herschel's farm, where Sean is the son. Sean is probably the more important of the two characters you escape with. He's just a nice dude who tries to convince his dad that the apocalypse is really bad and they need to build up defenses, and then that's what he's working on. And then I don't know how he didn't spot the walkers that ended up killing him, because there was just like so much open field in front of him that surely he would have at least heard the zombies coming and not killed. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm saying it out loud, yeah, Sean's down here. He's nice and all. He has some interesting conversations with Lee, but he can't really go up above, push in front of Walker. At least his dad knew what he was doing, you know. So yeah. Next up is the dude, Stalker Man. Don't think he gets a name. He's the one that's been creepily talking to Clementine over walkie-talkie without Lee's knowledge, promising her that he knows where her parents are. And yeah, he's the guy that knows everything that Lee's been doing, and he's the guy that sort of judges your character at the end of the game. So him and Clementine are in constant contact without Lee's knowledge, and Clementine tells the stranger everything about what's happening. So if you make decisions to kill people or to do something bad, then she's probably told the stranger about it, which leads to the stranger who lost his own family, and it's later revealed that that's because you decide, your crew does, whether you decide to or not, it's either you or the crew end up deciding to take all of the stuff from an abandoned car, which turned out to be a car belonging to him and his family. So his family ended up leaving him because they had no supplies, and he'd already caused the death of his own son. So they left him, and then he later found them dead, and he'd weirdly taken the head of his wife, and kept it in a bag with him, still alive. Very creepy. It's clear that his family's death had made him nuts. But he insists that he would be a better parent for Clementine than you are. And when you do finally confront him, it is an interesting confrontation, because he says he's been a parent before. He knows how to take care of Clementine better than Lee does. He calls out some of the decisions Lee has made, not just stealing from his car, but also some of the decisions you end up making earlier in the series, where you do have to make some morally ambiguous calls. He calls you out on them, and you have to try and defend yourself, justify your actions. But of course, in the end, you and Clem end up killing him, and Clem goes with you. But yeah, that final scene where you do get Clementine back, where you have that conversation with him, is a good scene. It definitely warrants better than At Least You Existed category. He definitely deserves to be here. Definitely above Mark, definitely above the St. John's. You know what, he's quite high up. We'll put him between Duck and Larry, I think. I think Duck was still more important than the stranger was, but he definitely earned his slot in the little screen time he had. Next up is this dude. Was his name Travis? I think. Yeah, he's very bottom of the list. His only contribution is being the kid that was with Ben and the teacher, that was incapable of running away, did the horror cliche of instead of running away, just tripping and falling over and not being able to get up. So yeah, just for that, dude, you're there. There's nothing I can say to redeem you. And finally we have got Vernon. So Vernon is the head of the cancer survival group you meet in Savannah. He's ends up deciding not to kill you. I mean, he could end up deciding to kill you, but then you just replay from the last save point, so his decision to kill you isn't permanent. He's torn whether to kill you or not. He is nice enough to help Lee find his way back to the group and help treat Omid even though he doesn't owe them anything. He helps them go through the sewers and he knows his way around even though he doesn't owe them anything. And Vernon helps with the heist in Crawford as well. Which part did he help out with the medical stuff, right? Because he's a doctor. So he helps Omid get better. He gets the supplies for his own people as well. And in the end, he actually offers to take Clementine off of your hands. Which most people playing the game I've seen get really angry at Vernon for offering to take Clementine off of your hands. But I think it did make sense, like the request he made, like Lee not being a father, before Vernon being in a survival group that had loads of supplies that were pretty secure, particularly after knowing that Crawford was no more. So his offer made a lot of sense, even though she ends up not going with Vernon anyway. So up until that point, Vernon seems like a really cool character who went out of his way to help you. He offers you the chance to take care of Clementine, even though you end up not doing it. It was still nice of him to offer, and I definitely agree that he had a point. But then later on, Vernon and his group end up stealing your boat, which was your one route out of Savannah. So all of a sudden, all the nice things that Vernon's done go completely down the drain when he leaves you and your group stranded in Savannah by taking the boat, tying up Penn if you leave him behind, or if no one's there, they just take the boat. So yeah, interesting. I mean, Vernon was a pretty interesting character. I think he goes between the St. John's and Katya. And it is later revealed in the 400 Days DLC that Vernon and his group some of his group did live on. They make mention of the fact that their crew fell apart after they stole the boat from your crew. So that drove a wedge between them, and that ended up with the crew splitting up. Maybe Vernon survived, or he just split off from them, I don't know, but maybe he died as well. Yeah, that is the tier list at the moment. So now I'm looking at revisions. So Clementine, Lee, and Kenny definitely top tier. I think Molly goes in here, you know. I think Molly deserves S tier. She wasn't there for that long, but every moment she was there, it was at least exciting. Whether it was the combat, the dialogue, her story. Yeah, Molly deserves epic status for me. Carly, Lily, Omi, Krista. I'm gonna put Doug up here as well. I feel like if I put Carly there, I should put Doug here. Because they're around for about the same amount of time. And their characters take a similar path. Ben... No, I'll move Ben up as well. I would say if they did what I said and made him do something that would just epic and really made his character arc worth waiting for, he'd be up here. I think Ben at least deserves to be up here. In fact, Ben can go above Doug as well. Doug's fine there. I think that's a solid list. I wouldn't mind surviving with Duck, Stranger, Larry, Katya, Vernon, the St. John family, and Mark. That's fair, I think. These two existed here. Herschel, Glenn, and Bree. But Glenn deserves. You know what? I put Mark here and Glenn here. I think Glenn's better than Mark. I'm putting Glenn up here, and I'm putting Mark. Nah, Mark still had the epic moment. I'm putting them both there, even though that makes my mids here pretty packed. Yeah, Herschel and Bree, or at least existed. So these people, I think at least made, I would say, they weren't there for long, but at least made a significant contribution. Even if they weren't particularly memorable, so they get to go here. And yeah, pushing in front of Walker. Police officer, we've got Sean, we've got Chet, we've got teacher dude, and we've got a kid who I think was called Travis. But yeah, that is my Walking Dead Telltale Season 1 tier list. Just over an hour gone. If you made it this far, congratulations. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know who I put in the wrong place, in your opinion. And yeah, let me know your opinions, who you thought should have been where. And hopefully I'll see you on another video. Take care and peace.